The stars outside the alien academy glowed like endless silver fires. But inside the great halls, silence ruled. Students sat in perfect order, learning facts about physics, energy, and logic. Emotions were forbidden, faith was mocked, and anything about souls was called primitive. Among those students was a young alien girl named Sarai. Curious in a way others were not, Sarai's species, the Vayari, believed they were the most advanced in the galaxy. They had technology that could bend gravity, cure disease, and read minds. But for all their knowledge, they rejected one strange idea, the idea of the human soul. To them, humans were weak creatures, limited in body and mind, yet dangerous because of their strange beliefs. Sarai, however, felt something different whenever she read about humans in secret archives. There were reports of humans who fought even when their bodies were broken, stories of mothers who sacrificed everything for their children, tales of explorers who crossed stars not for survival, but for curiosity. Her teachers said it was only instinct, nothing more. But Sarai felt there was something deeper, something she could not explain. One night, after the lights dimmed in the academy, Sarai stayed behind. She crept into the restricted section of the data library. There, glowing on the screen, were forbidden texts captured from human records. She read words she had never seen before: soul, spirit, faith, love. Each word struck her heart like lightning. She whispered softly, "What is a soul?" And for the first time in her life, the question frightened her. Her people always taught that life was only chemistry and energy, that existence ended when the body ended. But the humans claimed something else, that within them was an invisible spark, eternal and unbreakable. The more Sarai read, the more her chest tightened, as if something inside her wanted to wake. Suddenly, a voice echoed in the dark hall. "Sarai." The elder instructor's tone was sharp. She froze, her hands trembling over the glowing text. The tall figure of Instructor Kilos appeared, his eyes cold as stone. "You know this material is forbidden," he said. "Why do you waste time on human myths?" Sarai lowered her head, but her voice betrayed her trembling heart. "They are not only myths, Instructor," she whispered. "Humans speak of something greater than survival, greater than flesh. They speak of the soul." The instructor's face twisted with anger. He slammed the console shut and locked the data with a command. "Enough, child," he thundered. "There is no soul. There is only matter. Humans are fools, and fools are dangerous. You will forget this lesson." But Sarai could not forget. That night she lay awake in her chamber, staring at the ceiling. Every word from the human texts burned in her memory. If a soul was real, then her people had been blind for generations. If a soul was real, then perhaps humans were not weak, they were something more. In the days that followed, Sarai noticed changes in herself. She began to question things her people had always accepted. Why did humans fight wars they could not win? Why did they sing songs when silence was easier? Why did they die smiling, as if death itself could not defeat them? Her classmates laughed at her questions. They called her strange. They warned her to stay away from dangerous thoughts. But Sarai felt more alive with every forbidden idea she discovered. And deep in her heart, she knew the academy would never give her the answers. She would have to find them herself. Late one evening, she stood by the academy window, gazing at the stars. She thought of the humans scattered far away across the galaxy. Somewhere among them, the truth about the soul existed. She whispered to herself, "I must see it, I must know." But even as she spoke, shadows moved in the corridor behind her. The elders had begun to suspect her obsession. Her curiosity had become dangerous, and though she did not know it yet, the path she had chosen would lead her to a single human. A human who would change her life, her world, and the destiny of both species. The forbidden's lesson had begun. Asterisk, the alien academy was restless when news spread of a captured human. The elders called it a security matter. The instructors warned the students to stay away. But for Sarai, it was like destiny itself had answered her secret wish. A real human, living and breathing, was here, inside the walls of her world. The prisoner was brought into the Academy's research wing, locked behind shields of light. Other students watched with cold curiosity, measuring his muscles, his reflexes, his biology to them. He was only another subject to study, another creature to dissect with reason. But to Sarai, the human was different. He carried something invisible that none of their machines could. He was not tall by Vayari standards, not strong compared to their warriors. Yet when he stood, bound by restraints, there was a strange power in his eyes. They were not eyes of fear, nor eyes of submission. They were eyes that seemed to hold endless skies, endless fire, endless hope. Sarai could not resist. She found herself drawn closer each day. At first, she pretended it was research, asking about human words and customs. But soon her questions turned deeper, questions her people would never dare ask. What is a soul? She whispered one evening, her voice trembling through the energy shield. The human looked at her, surprised. For a long moment, he did not answer. Then his lips curved into a faint smile. "My name is Daniel," he said softly, "and a soul is the part of us that never dies." Sarai's heart raced, her mind spun. The word never echoed in her thoughts. She asked again, desperate, "But how can something live without body, without science?" Daniel tilted his head, his expression calm yet full of strength. "Because the soul is not made of matter," he explained. "It is made of faith, of love, of the choices we make. It is the fire inside us that says, even when we are broken, we are still alive." Sarai felt her chest tighten, her breath shallow. She had read the human texts, but hearing it spoken was different. The way his voice carried the word soul made it sound alive, as if the very sound itself had weight, as if truth could be spoken into being. She visited again the next night, and again the night after. Each time, she asked more. Each time, he answered with patience. She asked about love, and Daniel told her it was when two souls chose to walk together. She asked about death, and he told her the body may fall, but the soul journeys onward. She asked about God, and his voice grew quiet. God is the one who gave the soul, the one who made the spark that cannot die. Sarai shivered at the words. Her people had no gods, only leaders, only science, only control. But Daniel's God was different. Not a ruler of fear, but a giver of light. The more she listened, the more she felt something inside her shift. It was like a door opening in her chest, a door she could never close again. One evening, as she sat alone after meeting him, she realized her hands were trembling, not from fear, but from a strange warmth she could not explain. Her thoughts no longer felt like her own. They carried whispers of his words. She wondered, could a soul awaken in someone who was told it never existed? Her obsession did not go unnoticed. Other students began whispering when she left class too often. The elders watched her with narrowed eyes. They feared that contact with the human was spreading corruption. One instructor warned her sharply, "Do not let their madness poison you, Sarai. Humans speak lies because they are weak, and weakness is death." But Sarai no longer believed their words. When she looked into Daniel's eyes, she did not see weakness. She saw a flame, steady and unbroken, a light her people did not have. She felt that if she looked long enough, the flame would leap into her own heart. One night, as she turned to leave the research wing, Daniel called to her. "Sarai," his voice low but firm, "you have questions." "But I have one too." She froze, her hand against the cold wall, and slowly turned back. "Why are you different from the others?" He asked. "Why do you listen when the rest only mock?" Her lips parted, but no words came. She had no answer. Or perhaps the answer was too dangerous to speak. Because the truth was simple, she felt bound to him. Not by logic, not by science, but by something invisible. Something her people had denied for generations. Her silence was answer enough. Daniel's eyes softened, and he spoke gently. "Maybe your soul is only now beginning to awaken." Those words haunted her long after she left the chamber. She walked under the alien moons, but every step felt Lighter, every sound in the air sharper, every breath deeper, she wondered. Had her soul truly awakened, or was it only the beginning of a path that would change everything? And far above, in the dark halls of the council, the elders were already planning. They would not allow a Vayari girl to be tainted by human lies. If she continued, she would face exile or worse. But Sarai did not know this yet. All she knew was that the flame had been lit, and nothing in the universe could put it out. The academy grew colder for Sarai after secret talks with Daniel. Her classmates noticed the distant look in her eyes, the way she lingered in the research wing. They whispered that she was strange, that she was listening too closely to the human. But Sarai no longer cared for whispers. She had touched something deeper, and it burned inside her like fire. One morning, during a lecture on the nature of life, Sarai raised her hand. The instructor was teaching that life was nothing more than atoms in motion, that willpower, love, sacrifice were only illusions of chemical reactions. But Sarai's voice trembled as she asked, "What if life is more than matter? What if there is something within us that cannot be measured?" The classroom went silent. Every head turned. The instructor's eyes narrowed, his tone cutting like ice. "Those words," he said slowly, "are poison brought by humans. You will not speak them here." But Sarai pressed on, her heart racing. "Then why do humans endure suffering we cannot explain? Why do they rise again and again, even when logic says they should fall?" Her classmates laughed nervously, some whispered warnings. The instructor's face darkened. "Because humans are unstable, their madness drives them to chaos. Do not mistake chaos for strength, child." But Sarai lowered her gaze and whispered to herself, "It is not chaos, it is soul." That night the elders summoned her. The council chamber was vast, glowing with pale blue lights that painted their faces in shadow. Elder Kilo stood in the center, his voice heavy with authority. "You have been speaking forbidden words," he said, "and you have been seen with the human prisoner more than once." Sarai's chest tightened, but she forced her voice steady. "I only seek truth," she replied. "Is that a crime?" The elder's eyes burned with anger. "Truth is what we allow, nothing more. Humans are liars. They invent stories of souls and gods to comfort their weakness. We will not let such filth infect our kind." Her heart pounded as she stepped forward, her voice rising. "Then why does their weakness inspire strength? Why does their suffering shine brighter than our perfection? You call it lies, but I have seen it with my own eyes." Gasps filled the chamber. The elders shifted. Uneasily, one slammed his staff against the ground. "Enough. This is corruption. This is treason against reason itself." For a moment, silence ruled. Then Elder Kilo spoke again, his voice low but sharp. "You will end this obsession, Sarai. You will never see the human again." Her hands trembled, her throat dry, yet she found herself whispering, "And if I refuse?" The elder's eyes turned cold as stone. "Then you will be exiled from this academy, stripped of your place among us." Her heart cracked at the words, but deep inside, another voice rose, Daniel's voice, steady and warm. "Maybe your soul is only now beginning to awaken." That night, Sarai stood by her window, the stars distant and cold. Exile meant losing everything, her home, her family, her future. But silence meant losing something greater, her soul. She pressed her hand against her chest and whispered, "I cannot turn back." The next evening, she returned to the research wing, her heart pounding. Daniel looked up as she entered, his eyes searching her face. "You should not be here," he said quietly. "They will punish you if they know." But Sarai shook her head, her voice trembling but firm. "I have already been warned. They told me to forget you, but I cannot." Daniel studied her in silence, then spoke with quiet strength. "You risk everything for words you do not yet understand. Why?" Sarai's breath caught in her throat, and she whispered, "Because those words make me feel alive. Because they make me believe there is something inside me my people have never seen." For a long moment, he only stared at her, his eyes deep as oceans. Then he nodded slowly, as if confirming something he had suspected. "Then you have chosen," he said, "and that choice will change everything." The days grew darker after that. Her classmates avoided her, whispering that she was infected with human madness. The elders sent spies to watch her steps, their eyes sharp with suspicion, but none of it mattered, for every night she returned to Daniel, and with every word he spoke, the flame inside her grew stronger. She asked him about courage, and he told her it was not the absence of fear, but the will to rise despite it. She asked him about love, and he told her it was when two souls joined so deeply that no power could tear them apart. She asked him about sacrifice, and his voice grew quiet. "Sometimes," he said, "to protect what we love, we give even our lives, and yet the soul endures." Each answer was like a blade cutting through the walls her people had built around her mind. Each truth left her trembling, yet more alive than before. She began to see her world differently. Where others saw order, she saw emptiness. Where others saw perfection, she saw chains. The conflict inside her burned brighter with every day. Her people demanded silence, but her heart demanded truth. And deep within her, Sarai knew the path she had chosen had no return, for she was no longer only a Vayari student. She was something else, something her people feared, a soul in search of its light. The corridors of the academy had never felt so heavy for Sarai. Every step she took echoed with whispers of suspicion. Eyes followed her wherever she went, cold and sharp like blades. Her people had made their command clear. She was forbidden to see the human again, but Sarai's heart no longer obeyed rules. She felt something inside her stronger than fear, stronger than loyalty to the council. It was as if Daniel's words had carved a mark upon her very being, and every beat of her chest reminded her of the flame she had found. Late one night, when the halls were silent, she slipped through the shadows. Her hands trembled, but her resolve was unshaken. She reached the research wing, the glow of the containment shield casting silver light on Daniel's face. He lifted his head as she entered, surprise flickering in his tired eyes. "You came back," he whispered, his voice low but steady. "They told me you would not return, that they had broken your spirit." Sarai stepped closer, her eyes locked on his. "No council, no elder, no law can break what I have found," she said, her voice firm. "I want to understand more. I want to know what you know." Daniel's gaze softened, yet there was caution in his tone. "Sarai, the path you walk is dangerous. Once you choose it, there will be no return." She nodded, her heart pounding like thunder in her chest. "I have already chosen," she said, "and I will not turn back." For the first time since they met, Daniel smiled fully. It was not the smile of a prisoner, not the smile of a broken man. It was the smile of someone free, even behind chains. "Then I will tell you what your people fear the most," he said, his voice carrying weight. "They fear the truth of love." Sarai frowned, confused. "Love? They told me it is only a chemical trick of the brain, nothing more." Daniel shook his head slowly, his eyes burning with quiet fire. "No. Love is when two souls choose to be one, when they carry each other's burdens, when they fight not only for themselves, but for another." He leaned forward, his voice softer now. "Love is the proof that the soul is real, because no machine, no science, no reason can explain why it endures." The words struck Sarai deeper than she expected. Her breath trembled, her mind filled with images she could not control. A life not lived alone, a path shared, a future built with someone who gave meaning to her existence. The thought terrified her, yet it also filled her with warmth. She whispered, almost to herself, "I want to feel that." Daniel's eyes searched hers, and for a long moment, silence filled the chamber. Then he said, "Love is not given freely by words. Sarai, it is chosen, it is lived." Her heart raced, but she nodded, her voice steady. "Then I will live it, even if it means breaking every law of my people." The days that followed became a secret dance of rebellion. Sarai hid her meetings with Daniel, slipping away in the shadows. Each time they spoke, her spirit grew stronger, her questions sharper, her resolve unshaken. Her people demanded obedience, But her heart demanded truth. One night, as the moons hung low in the sky, she confessed something she had never dared say aloud. "Daniel," she whispered, "if the soul is eternal, then love between two souls must also be eternal. If that is true, then I want to carry your soul within me. I want to bear a child that holds both of us." The words stunned even her. Her cheeks flushed with heat, her chest tight as if she had revealed her deepest self. Daniel's eyes widened, shock flickering across his face, then softened with something else, something fierce, something tender. "Sarai," he said quietly, "do you understand what you are saying? This choice is not only about love, it is about a future that will put you against your entire world." But Sarai did not hesitate. "I know," she said, "and still my heart chooses it, my soul chooses it." At that moment, she realized she was no longer the obedient student of the academy. She was no longer a child of her people's cold logic. She was something new, something her people would call tainted. But she knew was awakened. Her choice was not made with fear, but with love. Yet outside the walls of the research wing, shadows moved. The elders had already grown suspicious of her nightly disappearances. Their spies whispered of forbidden meetings, of corruption spreading in secret, and the council prepared their judgment, harsh and merciless. But Sarai did not know this yet. That night, as she sat by Daniel's side, she felt only the weight of her decision. The path ahead would bring exile, danger, even death. But her heart had chosen, and there was no force in the universe that could undo it. The choice of the heart had been made. The council chamber was filled with shadows when Sarai was brought before them. Her wrists were bound by glowing restraints. Though she did not struggle, she stood tall, her eyes burning with a quiet fire. The elders stared down at her as though she were already condemned. Elder Kilo spoke first, his voice deep and heavy. "You have broken the sacred laws of our people. You have spoken forbidden words, and you have touched the poison of the human prisoner." The chamber echoed with murmurs, the crowd of students watching in horror and fascination. Sarai's chest tightened, but she did not bow her head. "I sought only truth," she said firmly. "I saw strength in what you call weakness. I saw light in what you call lies." Her words sent a shiver through the hall. Another elder slammed his staff against the ground. "Silence! You are no longer Vayari. You are corrupted, tainted by human madness." The judgment was swift and merciless. She was stripped of her place among the academy, her family name erased from the records. She was exiled beyond the walls of her city, cast into the wild lands, and as punishment, she was never to see the human again. But exile was not the end. It was only the beginning. That night, Sarai returned in secret to the research wing. She broke the locks with codes she had stolen, her heart pounding with every step. Daniel looked up in shock as the shield around him dissolved. "You should not be here," he whispered. "They will destroy you if they find out." Sarai stepped closer, her eyes steady. "They already have," she said, her voice trembling with both fear and resolve. "I am no longer one of them. I am cast out, but I will not leave you behind." For the first time, Daniel's chains fell away. Together they slipped through the silent corridors, the alarms beginning to stir. The halls that once felt like home now felt like a cage closing in on them. They ran through secret tunnels, their footsteps echoing like drums of war. Outside the academy walls, the wild land stretched into darkness, forests of black stone twisted under alien moons, and rivers of silver light carved through the ground. The air was thick with sounds of unseen creatures, their cries sharp and haunting. But freedom tasted sweeter than fear, and Sarai led Daniel into the unknown. Behind them, the council's hunters were released, tall warriors clad in armor that shimmered like liquid fire. They carried weapons designed to end rebellion. Swiftly, to the elders, Sarai was no longer a student, she was a traitor to be erased. The first night in exile was brutal. The cold air cut through their skin, and every sound in the forest made Daniel tense. Sarai built a small fire, something her people never bothered with. She had only seen humans use such primitive tools. But tonight the warmth felt sacred. Daniel sat beside the flames, his face illuminated by the flicker of light. "You risked everything for me," he said quietly. "Why?" Sarai stared at him, her heart trembling with words too heavy to speak. At last she whispered, "Because without you, I would have never found my soul." Silence stretched between them, but it was not empty, it was filled with the weight of a choice, a bond forged in fire. Daniel's eyes softened, and for the first time, he touched her hand. The warmth spread through her like a promise, one she had already made in her heart. But the danger was never far. On the second night, the sound of hunters echoed through the forest. Blow-in hounds of energy swept across the land, their howls splitting the air. Sarai pulled Daniel into the shadows, her heart racing. She knew the hunters would not stop until they were caught. Daniel's voice was calm even as danger closed. They will not give up," he said. "Are you ready for what this means?" Sarai's grip tightened on his arm, her eyes blazing. "I am ready for anything, as long as I am not alone." The chase grew fiercer as days passed. They crossed rivers of silver light, climbed jagged cliffs under alien stars. Sometimes they went hungry, sometimes they bled, but they never stopped moving, and through every trial, Sarai felt the flame inside her grow brighter. For the first time she understood sacrifice. For the first time she understood what it meant to fight not for herself but for another. Daniel's strength was not in his body, but in the way he never gave up. Even when his wounds slowed him, his spirit refused to break. One evening, as they rested in a hidden cave, Sarai whispered her truth at last. "I do not regret exile. I do not regret danger," she said softly. "All I regret is that I did not choose sooner, because now I know what I truly want." Her voice shook, but her eyes never left his. "I want to bear the child of a human soul. A child of love, a child of fire." Daniel was silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air like thunder. At last he placed his hand over hers, his eyes full of both sorrow and hope. "Then we will carry this choice together," he said. "Whatever comes, whatever it costs." Outside the cave, the hunters drew closer. The night was alive with danger, yet within the shadows, a new light was born. Exile had stripped Sarai of everything she once knew, but in its place, she had found something far greater, a soul unchained and a love worth fighting for. The danger was not over, it was only beginning. The wild lands grew harsher with every step. Storms rolled across the black skies, lightning tearing the heavens apart. Sarai and Daniel pressed on, but the chase had taken its toll. Their bodies were tired, their breaths heavy, yet their spirits burned with stubborn fire. For days they had escaped the hunters, but the council's reach was vast. Everywhere they turned, shadows followed, glowing eyes waiting in the dark. Daniel's wounds slowed him, cuts across his arms and legs from the jagged terrain, yet he never once asked to stop, never once begged for rest. Sarai watched him stumble, blood streaking his skin. Her chest ached at the sight. Her people would have called him weak, fragile, unworthy. But when she looked at his eyes, she saw no weakness. She saw strength unlike anything her world had ever taught. One night, under the shelter of a shattered cliff, Daniel collapsed, his face pale, his breath shallow, his body trembling. Sarai knelt beside him, panic rising in her throat. "No, you cannot fall now," she whispered. "I will not let you." Daniel smiled faintly, though his strength was fading. "Sarai," he said weakly, "this is the path we chose." Danger was always waiting. Tears burned her eyes as she clutched his hand. "But I cannot lose you. I cannot lose the soul that awakened mine." She tried to stop the bleeding, tried to shield him from the cold. Her hands shook as she worked, fear clawing at her heart. Her people would have abandoned the weak, left him to die, but Sarai felt a force within her that refused to let go. Through the long night, she stayed awake, whispering words she did not fully understand, words Daniel had given her Words that belong to humans: faith, love, soul. She whispered again and again, as if the words themselves could hold him to life at dawn. She looked at him and saw something that froze her heart. His body was weak, his breaths shallow. But his eyes still burned with that fire. He whispered through cracked lips, "Even if I fall, Sarai, my soul does not die, it endures." Her tears spilled as she shook her head. "No, you will not fall. I will not allow it." But in that moment, she understood. She saw what her people had denied for centuries. The human soul was not in the flesh. It was not in the strength of the body. It was in the will that refused to surrender, the love that refused to die. The revelation struck her like lightning. Her people had believed only in science, in numbers, in cold survival. But here, before her, a dying human carried more strength than all their armies, for he carried a soul that burned brighter than death itself. Her voice trembled as she leaned close. "Then if your soul endures, mine will endure with it. If you fall, I will carry your flame." Daniel's eyes softened, tears glimmering as he whispered, "Then you are more human than many of my own kind." The hunters found them soon after, figures of light and armor rising over the cliffs, weapons glowing like fire. Sarai stood, her body weak but her spirit unbreakable. She placed herself between Daniel and the hunters, her arms spread wide. "Step aside, Sarai." The lead hunter commanded. "You are lost. The human has poisoned you. Surrender, and you may yet live." But Sarai's voice rang out clear and fierce. "I have found truth in what you call poison. I have found life in what you call weakness. I will not surrender." The hunters advanced, their weapons humming with deadly power. Daniel tried to rise, his body broken. But Sarai pushed him back gently. "Your fight is not with them now," she whispered. "Your fight is to live. For your soul has shown me the path." Then she turned to face her own people, her eyes blazing with defiance. The battle was short but brutal. Sarai fought with nothing but stolen strength. Her body pushed beyond its limits. Each strike of the hunters drove her to her knees, yet she rose again. Not for herself, but for the soul she refused to let them take. At last they stood surrounded, the hunters closing in. Daniel's voice was hoarse but unyielding. "Sarai, no matter what happens, remember this. The soul cannot be chained. It cannot be destroyed." His words filled her with fire, her blood burning with courage she had never known. She raised her voice to the night. "Then let my people see what they fear the most," she cried. "Let them see a soul awakened, and let them learn that even exile, even death, cannot silence it." The hunters faltered, for in her voice was something they did not understand. Not logic, not obedience, but something greater. A force no science could explain. A force their weapons could not touch. It was the force of faith, the revelation of the human soul. That night, though wounded and hunted, Sarai felt no fear. For she had seen the truth with her own eyes. The soul was real, eternal, unbreakable. And from that truth, her destiny would rise. The wild land stretched endless beneath the twin moons. Sarai and Daniel had escaped the hunters that night. But only barely. Their bodies bore wounds. Their spirits carried scars. Yet they walked forward, for the fire inside them could not be put out, not by exile, not by fear, not even by death. Days passed into weeks as they hid among caves and forests. Sarai gathered food and water. Daniel taught her human ways of survival. Together they built fires. Together they faced storms. Together they endured. And in every struggle, Sarai felt their souls binding closer, like two flames becoming one. Her people had called her impure, cursed, lost. But in Daniel's presence she felt more alive than ever. Each moment was no longer only about survival. It was about meaning. About the choice to love in defiance of the stars. One night, as the firelight flickered against the stone walls of their shelter, Sarai placed her hand on her stomach, her breath trembling. She turned to Daniel, her eyes shining with something new. "I feel it," she whispered. "The child, it has begun." Daniel froze, shock filling his face. Then slowly softened with awe. "A child," he repeated. His voice breaking, Sarai nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "Yes, a child of two worlds. A child of your soul and mine." Silence hung heavy, but it was not fear that filled it. It was wonder, it was hope, it was the weight of something greater than either of them. Daniel reached out and touched her hand, his voice firm. "Then this child is more than us. Sarai, this child is a future, a bridge between stars." From that night, exile no longer felt like punishment. It felt like purpose. It felt like the birth of something greater. Every danger they faced became a trial to protect the life growing within her. Every step became a vow to carry this miracle to the future. But their journey was not hidden for long. The council's spies discovered traces of them, whispers of fire and footprints in the dirt. Hunters were sent again. Their mission clear, not only to kill Daniel, but to erase Sarai's unborn child. For to the elders, such a child was a threat, proof that their laws were lies. When the hunters came upon them once more, Sarai stood firm. Her body was weaker now, but her resolve was stronger than stone. She faced them not as a student, not as an exile, but as a mother. Her voice thundered into the night. "You will not take this child. You will not erase what has been born of love." The hunters hesitated, for they saw in her eyes something alien to them. They saw a fire that no exile could extinguish, no punishment could kill. Some among them faltered, doubt creeping into their hearts. They had been told the soul was a lie. Yet here stood one of their own, carrying proof of it. Daniel stood at her side, weak in body yet unbroken in spirit. He raised his voice with hers. "You fear this child because it proves what you deny. You fear it because it carries a soul stronger than your laws." And in that moment, the hunters realized that no weapon could destroy what they faced. The battle did not come that night. Instead, the hunters withdrew, their silence heavy with unease. For even they knew they had seen something greater than orders. They had seen the spark of the human soul living within an alien heart. In the days that followed, Sarai and Daniel journeyed farther. They left the forests and cliffs behind, moving toward unknown stars. They did not know where their path would end, but every step carried the promise of a new beginning. Months passed, and Sarai's child grew within her. She spoke to it at night, whispering words of love, of hope, of fire. Daniel smiled as he listened, sometimes adding his own words. He told the unborn child of earth, of stars, of the strength of the human soul. At last, one quiet dawn, the cries of a newborn echoed across the wild lands. A child was born, fragile yet fierce, small yet infinite. Sarai held the infant close, her tears falling onto its soft skin. "This is the proof," she whispered. "This is the legacy of the soul." Daniel placed his hand over hers, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "Then no matter what comes, no matter who hunts us, this child is hope. This child is truth." Sarai nodded, her heart overflowing. Her people could call it a curse, but she knew the truth. It was a miracle. Together they looked to the horizon, where the first rays of dawn lit the sky. The journey ahead would not be easy. It would be full of danger, full of trials, but they would face it as one, with the strength of two souls united. And with every step, their child would grow, carrying within it the legacy of both worlds. For from exile had come life, from danger had come love. From one human soul had risen a destiny greater than empires. And as Sarai whispered into the morning light, her words carried across the stars, "From one soul, a new destiny begins." Asterisk.